accounting. It's a huge discipline. It's a really good place to get a job because every single business has to have an accountant. If you're a good accountant, you probably never want to find a job. So it depends what you want to do in life, but this is a great area to go into. And I want to spend some time talking about it because there's different kinds of accounting. And also this may be in your future as you come through. Financial accounting. You really want to do a lot of analysis when it comes down to looking at the finances. This is actually my background is financial accounting. Can it pay its bill? How much debt does it owe? What about preparing the financial condition of the organization? All this is relating to financial accounting. You want to see the financial structure rather than looking on the actual day-to-day reporting of the dollars and cents in the process. On an annual report, here's some things that you really dive into. The discussion on the management, on the balance sheet, income statement, cash flows, and the auditor's opinion. On an annual report, if there's publicly traded stock, all 5 items have to be in the annual report. You always have a discussion at the beginning. You have the 3 statements we talked about: balance sheet, income statement, and your statement of cash flows. Of course, you already know the different formulas for that. Assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. You also know revenue minus your different kinds of expenses equals your bottom line, your profit or loss. And the statement of cash flows, seeing how the company is handling and doesn't have enough money to pay its bills. At the very end, you have the opinion of the auditor, because all publicly traded companies, as well as all nonprofits, have to have a CPA come in and do the audit on an annual basis. Different kinds of accounting. Private accountants, there's many. There are literally tens of thousands of private accountants across the United States. A public accountant, okay, they provide accounting services on a fee basis. They're just available as you go through, where a private accountant is actually somebody that works for the company. And then you have the CPA, where they pass a series of exams that they go through and they earn the CPA designation based upon the test they take. And a lot of times, if you want to work in an auditing company, you have to have a CPA in the background. There's a couple areas, and this is not a test question. It really goes through, it deals with a couple things of reporting standards. You have the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, as well as the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act. So you have those to look at, and here's some additional provisions for it as well. I'll leave this for you in case you want to dive into the detail that's involved that. And if you're going to go into the field of accounting, this is important to look at. But there's different ways to improve it. An accounting aspect and the practices. Make certain that you always know the current procedures, because there's changes to them, sometimes annually, but usually about every 2 to 3 years. See what's current on them. Usually none of them are huge, unless it depends on the current administration of Washington. You'll see changes there, especially on taxes. But it's a big thing for you as an accountant. Also, it gives you more value if you are an accountant. Then you also got to create and expand the internal audits. Sometimes internal audits are money. Sometimes they're actually conforming to policy. I served as an internal auditor, and frankly, it's a miserable job. Nobody likes the internal auditor, because you're coming in and measuring everything as you need to follow the rules. So if you want to have one of those jobs, they're really tough jobs to have, because nobody likes you, not even your mother, by the time you're all done. You can also get a job as an independent firm for consulting. And by the way, your mother called, she'll love you no matter what happens. Okay, and then also restructure executive compensation plans. These are all big things you pay attention to on really an ongoing basis as you come through. Managerial accounting, you really dive into some really fun areas. If you could believe it or not, accounting can be fun. Okay, you look at the cost of production, the cost of marketing. You want to sit down and do a lot of analysis as to exactly what's going on in the financial part of the company, and are you producing money, and are you looking at the ratios and the calculations when it comes down to it. If you start looking at the analysis here, you see a lot of parts involved. What about the storage of the parts, the inventory of the parts? What about the laborers that are involved? What about the workers' compensation costs? If you have more workers' comp claims, it becomes unsafe, and you have a cost you have to take care of in the aspect of a worker's off because of an injury on the job. So literally, there's a financial concern about the safety of workers in the process as well. So there's a lot of different things that are involved in a business survival, which is exactly what the management accountants do in the process. Auditing, you sit down and you have people come in, they look on the different information used to make the financial statements, they want to certify them. If there's any problems, they want to, legally, they're required to notify the shareholders. So fraud, there also is an entire school of accounting that looks for fraud in the accounting. We call them forensic accountants in the process, which is very interesting. That's also kind of a dangerous job, because if you do a really good job of finding who's hiding the money, that person may try to get you fired in the process. It happens all the time. Okay, so if you got a nose for solving, it's a lot of fun to do. And you get, a lot of times, the third party people, you bring them in to take a look. You ever been involved in audit? It's always kind of interesting, the process. Sometimes you're sitting there, if you're a major C-suite executive, in other words, one of the chiefs, sometimes you sit and you worry about what they're going to find out. So tax accounting is huge. It's a giant area, but pretty much after April 15th and May 15th, you're off, and it's kind of calm waters. But then you go back to this huge rigorous schedule. Working 60, 70 hours during accounting season is not unusual for an accountant. You have government and not-for-profit accounting. It is very, very different from private sector accounting. I was in a government agency as a college, as a chief business officer, and I got the different books all set up and everything else. I hired somebody to come in, and they came from the private sector, and they says, "You have multiple sets of books." I says, "Yeah." He says, "That's illegal." I says, "Maybe in your world, not in this world. It's pretty common to have a separate grant money, and you have one set of books here and another set over here. I had 12 sets of books." That's kind of how you work, because you're working with different funding mechanisms, and you don't do that in the private sector. It took him a while to figure out that, okay, but it's a different form of accounting, and it's specialized and has its own group of different people. Government accounting, you deal with all kinds of different things, from the National Park Service. You deal with all kinds of different aspects of colleges, universities, all kinds of different nonprofits. They intermingle a lot with government accounting in the process. Every business needs an accountant. It's a great field to go into. Private accountants, public accountants, CPA, auditing, financial accounting, manager accounting, government accounting. There's so much accounting, I just can't count for all the accounting. So that being said, it's an interesting field to go into. Take care.